Okay, good evening, everybody who's watching from the UK, and morning if you are in Canada. Welcome to Montair's first ever Aviation Career Pathways webinar. My name's Adam. I'm the Technical Program Manager for Montair, and with me I have...
My name's Andrew, and I am a Senior Instructor here at Montair Aviation.
My name is Liz. I am the Education Systems Developer at Montair.
Also, I'm off screen. My name is Mark. I'm the Chief Pilot for our 703 operation, and I'm going to be, within this software, you can ask questions. On the bottom, you should see a Q&A button. If you click that, you can send questions throughout the webinar, and I'm going to sort through any questions that you have. When we have time, we'll answer them during the webinar. If we don't have time or if we run out of time, we'll be sending an email out with a reply to all questions that we received during the webinar. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks, Mark. Okay, so if we look at the first slide, if we switch over, we'll go to the first one. The aim of this webinar is to give international students an insight into the Canadian pilot job market, explain why Canada is a great place to be a pilot, and also explain how Montair can help you with that journey. So like Mark said, please feel free to ask questions at any point. What we're going to be covering on this, we're going to have a quick look at the content overview. Let's go to the next one. So there's quite a few things we're going to be covering, and we'll try to rattle through some of it a bit faster. We'll be talking about the flow through to working as a professional pilot if you come to us as an international student. We're going to cover the broad range of pilot jobs in Canada fairly quickly. We're going to cover our integrated ATPL program, a little bit about accommodation, living costs. We're going to talk towards the end about the immigration process and study and work permits, and also how to return to the European market and convert your license. Like Mark said, don't forget to ask questions. There are going to be 2 polls during this presentation as well. They will pop on your screen, so 2 vote things that we want you to get involved with. And there's a giveaway at the end as well. So Liz, tell us about the giveaway.
Right, so if you stick with us for the entire webinar, at the end there will be a hashtag, and if you make note of that hashtag and share it, there is a prize that you could win. So stick around to see what that hashtag is at the end of the presentation. Yep,
you will win a thing. You will win some stuff. Okay, so just before we get into the different jobs, looking at this screen you see here, we see that as an international student, there are pretty much 3 flow-through options once you've graduated from our program, which we'll cover later. These options we're going to talk about in more detail during this presentation. So there's the instructor option. We're going to be covering that heavily. We think it's one of the best options, whereby you take our instructor rating, build some time, go on into industry. There's the direct to industry option. That's the middle one you see there, where you graduate from our program and then go out into the job market. And there's the return home option, where you can just do our integrated program, then go back to the European market and convert your license. So without further ado, we're going to start talking about the different jobs that are available in Canada as a pilot, beginning with flight instructor.
Okay, hi guys, I'm Andrew, and kind of like Adam just said, we believe that the flight instructor path is one of the best options available to new pilots in the industry. And this is mainly because as a new graduate, you will have around 200 to 250 hours depending on experience. And you need to bridge the gap between 250 hours and 1,500 required for your ATPL. And it's important to note, it's not just about total time. So having a total time of 1,500 hours will not necessarily get you an ATPL. You need something called pilot in command time. Now, this is where and why I believe the flight instructor route is the best option, because right out of your program, you will get the experience required to get 1,500 hours. Also, every hour you log as a flight instructor is pilot in command hours. Okay, so unlike becoming a first officer directly out of your program, first officer hours are not pilot in command, so you will fall short on the hours required to be an ATPL pilot. Now, another big benefit to being a flight instructor is it gives you a safe environment to build the required experience. So upon graduation, for example, you may not have much night flying experience. Being a flight instructor is a very easy way and a safe way for you to build that night flying experience because we have the support staff able to answer all questions and concerns that may arise. And I can say from personal experience, as a flight instructor, I've never been forced to fly in any conditions that I feel uncomfortable with. So again, for me and for everybody, it's a very good way to build that skill set required to be an airline pilot.
Fantastic. Quick question actually for you, Andrew, while we're on this slide. How many hours per year have you flown as a flight instructor?
Oh, that is a good question. It will vary depending on many different factors like weather and other duties that you pick up. So for me, I was a ground school developer as well as a ground school instructor. So I flew a little bit less than some other instructors, but I was able to get about 700 hours per year.
Yeah, that's still pretty good.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to talk more about this a little bit later. Okay, so moving on to another job now that you can go into right off the bat once you've graduated from our program. Survey pilot, this is quite a big sector in Canada. Aerial survey pilots support industry, things like mining, building, local government, things like that by carrying around photographic and laser equipment to build up a picture of the Earth beneath them, basically. It is a job that you can start with as low as 250 hours. You'll get a lot of hands-on flying time, which is great. You'll fly in some really nice scenery. You'll do a lot of low-level stuff. And generally, you'll fly in really good weather because of the nature of the type of flying. However, that can also be a negative because the weather's got to be good. So there will be days that you can't fly. It's a great way to build hours, but it's not the best paid job in the world, but you can do it straight away. Next thing we'll talk about is float flying.
So float flying is something that there's a lot of in this part of the world, up and down the coast of BC here. There are many communities that are very remote and have fly-in access only. So there are a number of jobs that you would be able to get as soon as you finish your commercial pilot license and float rating. It's really beautiful flying. You'll get to see some amazing parts of the world. It's very challenging and it improves your flying skills, your control coordination, things like that. The pay is also quite good for an entry-level job. Having said that, the work is typically seasonal, so you'll be very busy in the summertime with long days, and then it will definitely slow up in the winter. But once again, beautiful, beautiful flying, really fun, and you'll get to see some spectacular scenery for sure.
Great. If anybody has any specific questions on that, Liz was a floatplane pilot, so you can fire those questions in. And for anybody who's joined the webinar recently, at the end there's going to be a giveaway with a hashtag, so please put your questions in, but stick around till the end because we are going to have a giveaway. Okay, next sector we want to talk about is air ambulance. This is a really, really big sector in Canada because Canada is just so vast. And a lot of people live in remote communities. So the only efficient way to get people who are quite unwell or injured to specialized medical care in urban centers is to fly them on fixed-wing aircraft. In fact, two of our instructors now have gone to air ambulance. I thought of another one yesterday. So this is the kind of job you can get with around about 1,000 hours. So it's something that you could do after a little bit of time instructing or doing another low-time job first. You get to fly some pretty cool equipment like King Airs, light jets like Learjet, Citations, things like that. It is shift work, okay, so you have to be used to that kind of, or willing to work on that kind of pattern. But it's exciting. There's a fair amount of hand flying. You get to go into various short strips, things like that. So it's a really cool sector.
And I just want to add on that as well. Another big benefit of becoming something like an air ambulance pilot is you actually do get to stay in fairly large communities. You get to your home base, for instance, you see the picture in the middle there. The home base for those pilots is Vancouver. So yeah, you do get to see the far reaches of BC and you get to travel around into some more remote communities, but you know, you can always come home to the big urban centers.
Yeah, yeah. This is a really cool sector to work in and a great sort of stepping stone after you've been an instructor and built some time. The next thing we're going to talk about is charter and corporate.
All right, charter pilots. So basically, for those of you who don't know, the charter sector is like a limo service for the air. So it's a lot of business people, a lot of CEOs, some famous celebrities. You'll be kind of chauffeuring them around from place to place. Very fun flying because you're never on a schedule. And what I mean by a schedule is it's not scheduled service. Okay, so you're always doing different things, different days. You're flying into smaller, various airports. You're not stuck to the huge international airports. One of the drawbacks, though, is that you are tied to your plane. So what I mean by that is when your client wants to go somewhere and they want to go now, you're always on call and you have to show up and you have to take them. If they want to spend a week down in the Bahamas, you're spending a week down in the Bahamas. I mean, you are literally tied to your plane. And the negative to that is if they decide that they want to sell their plane, you essentially just lost your job. So there's a lot of good benefits to being a charter pilot, and there's also some drawbacks. Also want to mention that you won't be flying as much as, let's say, a medevac or an instructor or an airline pilot. They typically fly anywhere from 200 to probably 600 hours a year, 600 being on the high end.
Yeah, and if you're a bit of a plane spotter like we are, there are some pretty cool aircraft in the charter and corporate sector. Oh, yeah. Some really, really nice bits of kit. Okay, sure. Next we'll talk about cargo.
Okay, cargo pilots. This is probably one of the most widely, this job will range from very small aircraft to very large aircraft. So starting out as a charter pilot, you'll probably work on something like a Cessna Caravan. I know FedEx has a large fleet of Cessna Caravans in Canada, and they take pilots typically with, I guess, less hours, anywhere between 500 and 800 hours. You can get yourself on a Caravan. And you can work your way up. As you see the bottom right-hand corner, FedEx also has a fleet of 727s. They have 757s as well as 767s. So you can transition all the way from a Caravan all the way up to a 747. So it is a very good career opportunity.
It's a well-paid sector, this one, isn't it?
Extremely well-paid. In fact, there's some of the highest paid pilots in the world. The drawback to that is schedule. So typically the cargo pilots will work the overnight shifts. They fly very early in the morning, overnight for the long hauls. If you get into like the 67 or the 747, you're going to be flying the overnight flights. And they fly very early in the mornings. Okay, so for instance, as a Caravan pilot, you can expect to start work at maybe 4 o'clock in the morning to get that morning run out, and again, very late at night. For the bigger guys, like I said, you can expect to start work at anywhere from 11 to 2 in the morning. So
yeah, well, an exciting sector though still. Okay, and then last but certainly no means least, we're going to talk a little bit about airline. Obviously, for a lot of you watching, this is probably the ultimate goal. Airline sector in Canada is absolutely huge because there's a huge number of domestic flights to the US, and of course international flights as well. The Canadian and North American airline structure is kind of like a two-tiered thing, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. As an entry-level position to the airlines, it would be more of a regional airline. And regional airlines, if you look on the bottom left-hand side of your screen, you will see something called a Bombardier CRJ jet. That's the type of thing that regionals will fly. It's the smaller jets as well as the larger turboprops. And they're typically domestic, or from Canada, they go into the US as well.
Yeah. And they're as like a feeder into larger mainline airlines like Air Canada and WestJet. So they're taking people from smaller urban centers to big urban centers like Toronto, Calgary, Vancouver, to then connect to big international flights. Typically in Canada, with around 1,000 hours, you can certainly make an application to regional airlines, and a huge number of instructors are doing this now. Right now in Canada, there is an acute pilot shortage. We are kind of feeling it a little bit, so there is a definite flow through right now from those lower time jobs like instructing, the other jobs we mentioned, right through regionals and into the mainline airlines. So that's why we wanted to highlight this and highlight our process. So any questions about the jobs, please feel free, fire them in, and Mark will pick those up. We're going to talk a little bit now about how Montair can help you with this process by talking about our Integrated Airline Transport Pilot License course. So we only offer an integrated program, but there's a reason for that. Integrated, I'm going to ask Andrew, why is integrated better? Sorry, I don't think I'm doing it. But you've got experience in both systems, so here we go.
So as a student, I actually went through both a modular system and an integrated program. As well as an instructor, I started off instructing in a modular program and moved to an integrated program. So I have experience in both as both student and an instructor. And I have to say, integrated, I find, provides a much higher quality of training. And the reason behind that is simply the amount of control that you have over a student's progress. So typically in an integrated program, you will have classmates, you will have basically a team of peers that you go through this program with. You have you have the same start date, and you have a very similar projected completion date on this integrated program. And what that does is it allows you to get support from your classmates as far as studying for different tests and exams, as well as reviewing different flight procedures as well. The other part to this is it gives you about 10 times the amount of ground school that a modular course does. So in this program, we have 750 hours of ground school, which is paired up. Each phase of ground school is basically directly relates to the same phase of flying. So you will never be learning something in ground school that you will not almost immediately see in the aircraft, which really helps solidify the knowledge you learn in the classroom.
Hey, Andrew, how is that different than a modular course?
Good question. So that is different from a modular course because in a modular course, you would enroll in a, let's say a PPL ground school. That course is the same course and it's kind of put on repeat. So typically it's, I think mine was an 8-week course and it just cycles through every 8 weeks. So you jump in at any point in the course. So I started in meteorology. And then I moved into navigation. But by the time I was learning about navigation, I hadn't even finished my first solo. So I was learning about how to plan a cross-country, 150-mile cross-country, when I couldn't even leave the control zone yet. So the difference in kind of where I was in ground school versus where I was in the plane was kind of too large to really retain that knowledge for by the time I got there in my flight training.
Gotcha. And the last thing I would say about integrated is it's fast. If you are looking at the quickest way to go from little or no experience up to industry ready, whether that's to be an instructor or to go into another job, this is the quickest way to do it. Modular is much, much slower, especially, if you're taking your time over a modular course and you're not getting pushed like you are on an integrated course. Ours is quite intensive. You have to work hard, but you know what? It's the quickest way to get there.
So, you know what? I'm going to jump in there for a second. Talking about fast, even after you finish, again, with the amount of ground school and the amount of knowledge that you leave that course with, you can accelerate your career from your first job. So I know with the amount of ground school I had, I was able to come in and able to jump up to being a ground school instructor a lot faster than some people that came in that didn't have that background. I was able to teach more advanced flying faster than some people who didn't have that background just because of the knowledge that I brought with me.
That's a really great point. Yeah, more theoretical knowledge with it. Okay, so I'll really quickly talk about the cost breakdown for our program. Those of you who met us at the Expo in London will have this already, but I'll quickly cover it again. So our course is just under $112,000 Canadian. That value is fixed. The other currencies you see there, those values may move around depending on the exchange rate at the time. So right now in pounds sterling, by today's exchange rate, it's about £66,000 actually. So that's kind of fluid. It could move around a little bit. That price, £67,000, is much more akin to doing modular training in the UK, and we've already discussed the differences between the two. So you're getting a higher quality of instruction for modular money, if you like, by the time you've added all the different modules together and done multi-crew cooperation, which you get as part of our course. It's more like modular money, okay? Any questions, please feel free to fire those in, all right?
Probably worth mentioning that these costs are also for the international program.
Yes, yeah, this is for students arriving internationally, yeah, coming from abroad. And of course, now we'll talk a bit about accommodation and living costs here as well.
So our location here in Pitt Meadows at the airport is just a 20-minute walk right from the center of town, where you'll find your grocery stores, restaurants, transit hub. There's a train that will get you anywhere across the Lower Mainland that you might want to go. So for those of you who would be interested in on-site accommodation or Montair arranging accommodation for you, that is something we could explore if there was sufficient interest. So what I'll do right now is just get a little poll out to you. So if you wouldn't mind having a quick look at that. Perfect. So basically, if you're looking for your own accommodation nearby, there's lots of options. You know, one-bedroom apartment would start at about 1,300 Canadian, which would be about 755 pounds. And once again, that's at the current exchange rate. If you wanted a slightly more economical option, you could rent a room. So share the space with someone else and just rent the bedroom. And that would be a bit less expensive, about $900 or 525 pounds. A transit pass is about 55 pounds, and your living expenses, this would include things like groceries, cell phone, you know, the odd dinner out and that sort of thing, would be about 500 Canadian or 290 pounds per month. For getting around, once again, it's a 20-minute walk to our sort of closest transit hub, and I would also highly recommend using a bicycle. Everything, you know, fairly close by and fairly flat as well. So a bike is a great way to get around as well if that's something that you're interested in.
I just want to point out, for those of you who don't really know, the picture on the top right, that's actually our Pitt Meadows town. So that's the town that's right closest to our airport. So that would be where you'd be staying, where you'd be flying, and where you'd be living.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. The point was made about getting a bike as well. So all the transit is integrated. You have one transit card, a bit like an Oyster card, gets you on all of it, and you can take a bike on the transit as well. Even the bus, they have great big bike racks on the front of the buses. So it is very, very good. Okay.
We had a question.
Yes.
Daniel, he was wondering if we could email these slides out at the end of the presentation, and that is the plan. Additionally, for anyone who might not have joined at the beginning, if you don't know how to ask the questions, at the bottom of your page, you can see a Q&A button. If you click that, you can type out a question to us. If you guys, well, whatever questions we have submitted to us, we'll put together a list, and we'll also email out a list of all the questions with the answers at the end of the
probably be early next week, I think.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
Early next week, we'll send all these out to you and then any questions as well. Okay. So we'll talk briefly about the instructor rating course. You've seen already our integrated program is 14 months long. At the end of that, you have the option of either trying to go straight into industry or doing our instructor rating course, which will be delivered by a very experienced Class 1 instructor. How did you find yours, Andrew, your instructor rating course?
My instructor rating course was very, very interesting, actually. It was one of my most favorite ratings that I got after getting my CPL. And the reason was, it was like learning to fly all over again. So my Class 1 pretty much said it right. You learn how to fly, and then you learn how to fly correctly in the course. So it was definitely some of the best money I've ever spent. It was a great investment. And like I said, the amount of experience that I have gained becoming an instructor has really been invaluable. I can take that everywhere.
Yeah.
So.
Fantastic. How long is it roughly? How long would it take?
I took a break in between. So I took a 3-month break, and it was 9 months. So realistically, you could get it done in anywhere 5 to 6 months.
Yeah. Okay, and like you've already seen from earlier on, we think this is one of the best ways to get into the industry and start building pilot in command time, because pilot in command time is just gold. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit now about a a link we have to a particular airline. So anybody who becomes an instructor with us, and by the way, I should have mentioned, if you do the instructor rating with Montair after your integrated program, you're guaranteed an interview for a job as an instructor with Montair. We have a partnership with one of the regional airlines, like we were talking about earlier, an airline called Air Georgian, but they operate as Air Canada Express, and they fly Bombardier CRJs, as you can see there. So if you work for us as an instructor, you are guaranteed an interview with Air Georgian. If you work for Air Georgian, you're guaranteed an interview with Air Canada. How it works is by the time you've built up 500 hours, you're eligible to apply for the Air Georgian SOAR program. That's the name of this program. You then be invited for an assessment day. Air Canada flies you out to Toronto. They put you up in a hotel. You have an assessment day with a sim and an interview, things like that, and you'll be given a conditional job offer. And that conditional job offer will be based on you gaining a certain number more hours. Okay, so you build some more hours and then you get ready to go. They pretty much give you a date to start ground school on the jet there. We've been pretty successful with this so far. I think about 7 of our former instructors have gone on to fly for Air Georgian, most of them on the jet, a couple of them are on a smaller turboprop, but this company is moving to an all-jet fleet. So
I was going to say something on that. 7 instructors, but that's in a very short period of time, right?
Because about a year, 18 months.
That was about in the last year, we lost about 7 instructors, and they transitioned right into Air Georgian. So it's a very popular flow through.
One of our viewers wanted to also confirm how many hours it was before you're eligible to enter that program. It's 500?
So 500, you can apply to the SOAR program and be invited for an interview at any point there after that 500-hour mark. Right now, they're asking for you to build up to 1,500 to get onto the Bombardier CRJ. But Air Georgian are, say, losing a lot of pilots to Air Canada, but that is the truth. A lot of pilots are flowing through into Air Canada mainline, so they need to kind of top up their supply of pilots. So you will be given a number of hours to build when you've gone through your assessment, and you'll pretty much be given a start date, like a conditional job offer.
It's basically, a few of my friends went through this, and I kind of followed them through this program. I followed their progress through this program, and they could start the application at 500 hours. For the interview for the jet, which you see on the bottom right, it was 1,000 hours for the interview. And then upon a successful interview with them, you would be given a conditional job offer. And the condition is you build 1,500 hours. And it's flexible, kind of like Adam said.
Yeah.
So once you basically get paired up with a mentor pilot, and you keep him up to date with your progress. And as you get close to that 1,500-hour mark, they will call you in for a ground school start date.
Yeah, it's been really, really successful for us. You can see there for the jet, they are based out of the east of the country in Toronto. So another huge urban center, even bigger than Vancouver, and they're doing a lot of flights into the States. So we still have friends who work for Air Georgian. They are absolutely loving it because they get to spend overnights in places like Nashville, Tennessee, just having a great time.
And their days off, they're on jump seat with Air Transat. To England.
Absolutely. You get a Star Alliance pass, so you get massively reduced rates on any Star Alliance airlines. That's Air Canada, United, Lufthansa, Star Alliance, lots and lots of different airlines. So the travel benefits of companies like that are absolutely great. So this is one option that we think is a brilliant option with us. Okay, this side here, we're talking about FAA. Liz, you can talk to us about FAA.
Right, so another benefit to coming to Canada and doing your training here, and particularly at our location as well here in Pitt Meadows, is that it's very easy to go to the States and convert your Canadian CPL to an FAA license. So it's as simple as a day trip down to the States. It's about 2.5-hour drive from our location here in Pitt Meadows to Seattle. You then would just have to do a written exam. There's no flight test required or additional flight training. It's just a written exam. And you'll also need to pass a FAA medical. And if you have your commercial medical here in Canada, it's the same. So you would have no trouble getting that American medical as well. So it's a really great option to do that while you are here, just because having that FAA can also open some doors to you. There are a number of countries around the world that accept American FAA license without any sort of further conversion. So if that is something that you're even a little bit interested in, I would highly recommend doing that and exploring that option.
Yeah, always worth getting more licenses. Okay, I'm going to talk a bit about the immigration process. People kind of fear this a little bit, but there's really no need to. It's not difficult at all. I obviously went through it myself, went through this exact process. So the way it works is you would begin an application with us, and then once you paid a small deposit, we would issue you with something called a letter of acceptance. That letter of acceptance is basically us as a designated learning institute saying you are accepted onto this course for a certain length of time. Using that letter of acceptance, you can then apply for a study permit. We're actually going to be issuing letters of acceptance for a fair amount of time longer than the 14-month IATPL program, and that's to allow anybody who does want to become an instructor with Montair to be able to continue, fit that instructor rating in at the end of the IATPL without having to apply for a study permit extension. So you only have to pay for one study permit, basically. The process of applying for a study permit is all online. You can track your application online. It takes around 5 weeks, and you just get told via email, you've been approved. Well, hey, you turn up in Canada, you pick up your study permit. You can work on a study permit for up to 20 hours a week if you're on a full-time course, and this is a full-time course with us. So you are able to work as well to supplement your income if you want to do that. And then just a real quick note, if anybody wants me to talk more on this, please ask a question. But once you have graduated from an approved course, which our IATPL is, you are then eligible to apply for something called a post-graduation work permit. Postgrad work permit is an open work permit. So you can go and work for any company that accepts people on work permits. That's most companies in Canada, including Air Georgian. You can go work for Air Georgian on a work permit. You don't need to be a permanent resident or a citizen. So this is an absolutely fantastic way of staying in the country, building some really valuable international work experience. And then for those of you who, once you've finished the program and decide, you know what, I just wanted to train in Canada, now I want to convert back to European straight away, it's a pretty straightforward process. However, we do recommend doing it in a country that is not the United Kingdom, unfortunately, because, you know, I know full well, I'm from the UK, rip off Britain. Unfortunately, it is extremely expensive. Flight training is very, very expensive in the UK, and the conversion process is going to be more in the UK than it is in other European countries. So I would recommend looking at other flight schools in other countries to do this. Essentially, you always need a medical to start with. So for example, if you're going to go FAA, you need an FAA medical. If you want to convert to an EASA license, you need to get yourself an EASA medical. But if you can pass a Transport Canada one, you should be able to pass a European one. So you need the medical, and then essentially you need to do 3 different things to convert absolutely everything across. The first thing is you'll need to pass the 14 EASA ATPL exams, which most people do as a distance learning course. You'll then need to convert your Canadian CPL to a European one, which will involve a small amount of flight training and a flight test. And then you need to convert your multi-engine instrument rating over to a European one. Same thing, most of that process can be done in the sim for the instrument rating, then a little bit of flight, and then a flight test. So you've converted all of those things, then you apply and you can get an EASA license. So you can see that by getting a Transport Canada license, it actually opens up the possibility of holding an American license and a European license as well. So please do ask any questions about that if you want. We can provide you with lots and lots more information.
Question for you. What happens if they decide to, let's say, do the instructor route, they build their 1,500 hours, they get their ATPL, and then they want to go home?
Right. This is a great question. So if you have a full or unfrozen ATPL in Canada, the process of converting then to a European ATPL becomes slightly easier. Well, quite a bit easier, actually. So you still need to do the 14 exams. Unfortunately, that's just the European way. Those 14 exams are always going to be there. However, I know they're a killer. I've done them. They're really, you know, takes a while, but you know what, it's just the way they do it. It's the theoretical knowledge thing, okay? They love that in Europe. So you need to do the 14 exams, but you don't need to enroll on a theoretical knowledge course. So you don't need to do a distance learning course. So that could save you some money. But once you pass those 14 exams, if you hold an ATPL, you need to just do an ATPL flight test, which is a 2-crew flight test. So it's going to be done in a 2-crew environment on a 2-crew aircraft. But most of the time, people do that on a simulator, okay? So it'll be something like a 737 sim or an A320 sim in a 2-crew environment. So you're getting kind of everything done in the one flight test. So it is a simpler process. So therefore, it's worth, I think, sticking around, getting the Canadian ATPL, getting some airline experience in Canada before you return and convert to a European license. But yeah, really good question. Okay, so that brings us to the end. I think we're going to do another poll at this stage.
Yeah.
Oh, also, we have one more question from Ashley. She's asking, how many ground exams are required for your Canadian ATPL?
Oh, perfect.
2. Yeah. So you need to write 2 exams for the Canadian ATPL. One is called the SARON, and one is called the SAMRA.
We have a more of a progressive structure in Canada. So essentially, even though we're an integrated course, when you're doing the PPL phase, you will do 1 PPL written exam prior to doing the PPL flight test. Same thing in the CPL phase, 1 CPL written before the CPL flight test. You'll do 1 for the instrument rating, and then as Andrew said, 2 for the ATPL. And you'll do those as part of our integrated ATPL course. So it's 5 written exams in total versus 14. Okay, so we're going to do another poll right now.
So for those of you who might be interested in attending an additional info session, let us know, and we can definitely send you some invitations for that when we get there. And for those of you who have stuck around for the entire webinar, first of all, thank you for joining us. And second of all, you'll see our hashtag at the bottom of the screen there, hashtag Montair webinar. So please use that tag, and we will select a lucky winner who does so to get a prize. So once again, that's hashtag Montair webinar.
Yeah, and is it just Facebook and Instagram?
Facebook and Instagram.
Yeah, so yeah, please go ahead and use that.
I have another question from Daniel. Regarding the medical, I will be applying to English flight schools, and so we'll need to get an EASA medical. Is it possible to convert this to Canadian medical, or will I need to get the Canadian medical as well?
It's a separate medical. I'm afraid it is a separate medical wherever you go in the world. It is possible to get a Canadian medical in the UK. You can go on the Transport Canada website, and if you want any help with that, just email us, get in touch with us, we can help you. But the Transport Canada website details where all of the medical examiners are for Canadian medicals around the world. So I got a Canadian medical in the UK prior to coming out here. But unfortunately, yes, it is a separate Canadian medical. Yeah. Great question, though. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Daniel says thanks. No problem.
No problem.
And once again, if anyone else has any questions, feel free to submit them.
Maybe we'll leave the webinar open for a little while. If people do want to ask more questions, feel free to send them along. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning, we will compile a list of all the answers and send them out to all the participants at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Well, actually earlier next week, and we'll send a copy of all these slides that we've gone through as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you all for joining us, and please let us know if you have any questions at all, and we'll be sure to get back to you as soon as possible.